Hey everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video. We just recently had an expansion come out where everyone's reviewing, predicting what cards are going to be amazing, all that, and inevitably there's always a card or two or whatever that slips through the cracks that's a sleeper card that's like actually really good that nobody really picked up on. And I thought I'd go over my picks for the top 10 most basically underrated, top 10 sleeper cards in Hearthstone history where people just didn't see how powerful the card would become. And these weren't necessarily like given low ratings, depending on the reviewer and all that, but they just ended up being super powerful. So let's get going. What are my top 10 sleeper cards in Hearthstone history? Starting out at number 10, we have Fungal Mancer. It's a 5-mana 2/2 neutral minion, and it gives adjacent minions +2/+2. So effectively like a Blessing of Kings spread across two bodies. Remember when this was revealed? People are kind of underwhelmed by it. It's a 5-mana 2/2. You have to have minions on board. You know, how good is that? Well, when this was introduced, there's ended up being a lot of Baku decks, a lot of odd decks where they had a lot of sticky minions, especially like Odd Paladin. You're likely going to hit targets, and well, it did. And Odd Rogue, it did, and it was just a staple in a lot of aggressive decks that just basically always had the board. And when you always have the board, this is an incredibly powerful effect. And once you hit it once, you can hit it again the next turn because it's very likely they're not going to be able to remove that. So yeah, Fungalmancer was not exactly regarded as much of a powerhouse, but it was basically in every aggressive standard deck, especially odd standard decks until it rotated, and still sees play in Wild today. Number 9, we have Vicious Scalehide. It's a 2-mana 1/3 neutral beast, and it has Lifesteal and Rush. I remember when this was revealed, like, I mean, what are you doing with this? It's just like a Lifesteal Rush minion. This won't really impact anything. And then Quest Rogue all of a sudden had 4/4 Lifesteal Rushes infinitely. You could Dire Frenzy this in Hunter and have a bunch of Lifesteal minions. And you also had like hand buff, like Paladin, hand buff Rogue. You had all of this stuff that, you know, utilized this card extremely well, and it was very powerful and was kind of, it basically defied class identity in a lot of ways. It gave Hunter healing, it gave Rogue healing, and that was extremely powerful and very meta warping for a very long time. And I never really remember people popping up like, oh, Vicious Scalehide is going to be this crazy meta defining card. It was basically non-existent. And yeah, this little guy did a lot of work. And yeah, definitely a very underrated sleeper card. Number 8, we have a Warrior Weapon, Super Collider. It's a 5-mana 1/3 weapon, and whenever you attack a minion, you force it to attack one of its neighbors. And I remember when I saw this card, I'm like, this is unplayable garbage. Why would you ever want this? And then, yeah, it was insane in Odd Warrior. Absolutely incredible. You had the life sustain to basically face tank a big, like, giant, an 8/8 giant hit into another giant. Things like that. It was extremely versatile, and like it forced your opponents to have to very strategically play around it. And it's still a staple in a lot of Odd Warrior decks today. It's just an incredibly powerful card, but particularly in Odd Warrior. But most people rated it as either unplayable garbage or unplayable garbage. Like, I don't remember a single reviewer rating this as like anything good. And that, again, myself included. I used to review these cards on stream, not really on YouTube. I wasn't YouTubing back then, and I remember, pretty sure I gave it a 1. That was just complete garbage. And yeah, it turned out Super Collider was kind of super. Wow, that was absolutely terrible. I'll edit that out, it's fine. Next, we have number 7 is the Caverns Below. The original Rogue Quest. When it was revealed, it was you had to play 4 minions of the same name, and then your reward is that you get every minion is a 5/5 for the rest of the game. And I remember, I believe Trump gave this 1 star. A lot of people had a real tough time evaluating this. I didn't think it'd be any good, personally. I'm like, how playing 4 minions, it seems janky as hell, and how powerful are 5/5s? Very, very powerful. 5/5s for the rest of the game is insane. And when you have Shadow Step and you had unnerfed Prep would discount spells by 3, you could get this out on turn 2, turn 3, and then you won the game. Like, how do you deal with 5/5s for the rest of the game? It was absolutely insane. This card was ended up nerfed like 3 times directly, or 2 times directly, and like 3 or 4 times indirectly with like giggling nerfs and things like that. Card's nuts. Card was absolutely busted. It was in one of my most broken cards top 10 list. And yeah, people just did not evaluate this properly at all. But this one's a lot more forgivable because it was like completely different, out of the norm, seemed janky. How do you evaluate this? And yeah, definite sleeper, and my goodness, when it awoke, it was a monster and a behemoth of a card. Number 6, we have Xeric's Cloning Gallery. This is the legendary pre-spell, and it was 9 mana, and you would basically get 1/1 copies of all minions from your deck. And people are like, man, this is incredibly slow. I guess you do this in like some Death Rattle build, get some Death Rattle value. And when it was originally revealed and reviewed, it was like, meh, pretty meh. And honestly, the first while, it wasn't even that good. It didn't see much play. And then all of a sudden, Cloning Gallery Priest became a thing with coins. You had the coin guy, and you had Radiant Elemental, you had Velen, you had Malagos, and you could OTK your opponent. You could do you could do Lyra stuff and like infinite value. It was just incredibly powerful priest deck, and was very meta warping for quite some time until basically it rotated to wild, and it was the bane of my existence. I couldn't stand the card. It was like mana cheat, uninteractive OTK and pure random. Like, oh, I guess they didn't draw a double Radiant Mally Velen, so I'm dead, and that was infuriating, but absolutely insane card in the end, but definitely slept on by a lot of reviewers of the like until it really came through later on. We'll give them a bit of a leeway on this one. At least it didn't get better until later in its release. Number 5, we have an old god, Yogg Saron. 10 mana 7/5. Old god and battle cry. Cast a random spell for each spell you have cast this game. And yeah, people are like, oh, this is going to be a stupid meme card. This could be powerful. It'll make trolled in video highlights, and that'll be great. And it sure did. But it also made tournament highlights, and it basically impacted world championships and major tournaments, because this card was so insanely powerful, especially in a deck like Jade Druid, or just Druid in general, where you could just generate a bunch of spells and all of that. And yeah, it was like a guaranteed board clear, card draw. You would generate minions sometimes. You could do damage. You could just do unbelievably stupid stuff to the point where it had to get nerfed. And yeah, I just remember everyone that reviewed it was like, oh, this is trolled in material, but it's not a competitive card. There's no way this will see play. And it was the exact opposite. This deck was very meta-defining, very competitive, and definitely needed the nerf. And even after it got nerfed, it was still viable competitively. The card was absolutely ridiculous. Number 4 on the list, we have Archivist Aliciana. This was originally an 8 mana 7/7 minion, and then bumped to 9 mana to try and help casters not have to cast 80-hour games. So Archivist Aliciana effectively let you discover 5 cards, and you would add 2 copies of each to your deck. And this was a staple in like any fatigue deck, like Control Warrior in particular. And you had this in like Brewmaster, or if you're a real masochist, you run Baleful Banker. And yeah, the games would just go on forever and ever and go to the turn limit. And people saw this card. I remember when I reviewed it, I actually thought this could end up being a fatigue card. I'm like, this might actually see a bit of play, but for the most part, most reviewers were like, meh, this is like, what are you doing with this? Like, I guess you could get extra value, but I don't know. I didn't see a lot of people rating it highly, and then it became the bane of everyone's existence on ladder. People hated the 40-minute games that would go to a draw, and yeah, it would warp the tournament meta so much that the games would last absolutely forever, because, well, they Aliciana, they bounce it, Aliciana, and then you have a tie, and then what are you going to do? Like, they basically had to nerf it for the competitive scene, and they did, and it still saw play there, but at least the turn limit stuff didn't happen as much. But yeah, definitely a card that I didn't see a lot of people rating highly, but it was one that ended up being nerfed pretty quickly and had a huge impact on the meta. Number 3, we have Dr. Boom. The OG Dr. Boom. Everyone's like, oh man, this card's absolutely broken. One of the most broken cards of all time. And when it was originally revealed during the GVG reveal session, it was not rated highly. It was like, oh, it's Wargolem with some boom bots. Who cares? Everyone was like on the Trogzor hype train, which we might talk about in a video coming up. Yeah, everyone's all about Trogzor. I believe Chalky, who now works for Blizzard, said, yeah, Trogzor or Dr. Boom is no Trogzor. And he was right. It was absolutely no Trogzor. It's actually playable. One of the best neutral legendaries ever made until like recently, where power creep's gone crazy and you never even play this in WoW. But those boom bots, they would deal 1 to 4 damage, and they were just so swingy They were so good. You get that War Golem, and yeah, they could BGH it or whatever, but those boom bots would still fight for the board, deal damage, kill stuff. Incredibly good. Insanely powerful card. And I mean, they call him Dr. 7 for a reason. And people just didn't see it coming. They were just too much on the Troxor hype train. Number 2 on the list, we have Warglaives of Azanov. This is a Demon Hunter weapon, recently nerfed. It was a 5-mana 3/4, and your minion, as long as he attacks minions, can attack as many times as he wants, and it can go face. Unlike, it's basically a reprint of Fool's Bane. Fool's Bane did very much the same thing, but couldn't go face, and I think people got caught up in the trap of, well, Fool's Bane sucked. I mean, Warglaives can't be that good. No, it's really good, because it can go face, but the other part is there's so much attack synergy in Demon Hunter, whether it be with your Twin Slices, whether it be your minions like Ovar, or your Satyrs, or your Battle Fiends, or your Glaive Bounds. There's just so much ridiculous synergy with Warglaives that basically you never lost the board. You had healing with Eye Beam and things like that, and it was the best card after the first set of nerfs in Demon Hunter for basically until it finally got nerfed, and still see some play, although a bit too slow now. Demon Hunter does better stuff, but unbelievably good card, and basically everyone wrote this thing off. It was like a 1 or 2 star card across the board, and myself included. I just like, Fool's Bane wasn't that good. This won't be that great. We were all horribly, horribly wrong. This card was insanely powerful and definitely one of the most meta-defining cards in Ashes of Outland. So what is our number 1 sleeper card of all time? I think most of you know this. It's Corridor Creeper. He was a sleeper, but man, did he come out and creep on everybody. This was a 7-mana 5/5 beast neutral, and every time a friend or any minion dies, it becomes 1 less. So it had to be in your hand for that to happen, but yeah, basically this became a 0-mana 5/5 in no time, and that was incredibly powerful. With Prince Keliseth, you would buff it, and of course you had patches in the meta, so it got cheap really quickly. And I think this card was just really undervalued by almost everybody. Not everybody. I believe Zalay, I mentioned this in another video, saw the power of it and just destroyed in an early tournament with it. But yeah, I believe Trump is historically memed on for going the 1 star on it. But yeah, it was dumped late. I think it was a release day, like the last day dump release. So it kind of just went over a lot of people's heads. And then it was just one of the most insanely powerful cards ever that basically nobody rated highly. And holy crap, was I happy to see it get nerfed in a good time, because, yeah, I guess Blizzard didn't see it either, because it was just so unbelievably powerful, and definitely the top sleeper of all time. So let me know in the comments below, are there any sleepers I missed? Are there some that I'm wrong on, that people rated highly, or that you just disagree with? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. We'll have more top 10 lists, more tier lists, more everything as always. Have a great day, and stay salty, my friend.